Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of TEPSA Presents and our special Member Spotlight series. I'm your host, Todd Neslony, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. Each week, I love to bring you different people from across the state of Texas who are proud members of TEPSA and let you get to meet them and learn some things from them along the way. Tonight, my special guest is Principal Tyson Jones. Tyson, thank you so much for being here. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much, Todd, for having me. My name is Tyson Jones, and I am the proud principal at Sigler Elementary School in Plano ISD, and also a proud longtime TEPSA member. I joined TEPSA the first time I stepped into the administrative role back in 2013, 2014. Have loved being a part of it, and I'm so happy to be here tonight.
And a new dad, too, as well.
Yes, for
So
sure. Cannot leave that out.
we got to throw
It makes
that in
me
there.
feel better to hear your little guys in the background because you may hear mine and or the 6 dogs that we currently have.
Exactly. Oh, man. Well, Tyson, anytime we do these member spotlights, before we jump into advice for others and tech tools and all that other stuff, I love to kind of just to learn people's journey. And so obviously at some point you were in the classroom teaching. When did you realize that jumping into school administration might be in your path? Or was it somebody who helped you realize that?
So that's a great question. I would say it was kind of a combination. So after my first or second year of teaching, I have to get those first couple of years under my belt. I really started to think about administration once I started to learn more about just public education and how it was ran. And I had lots of, I would say, really strong examples of leaders, and then some that left a lot of room for opportunity. And it just showed me that the power of leadership is such an important piece to the culture of a school. And so I think I first got interested in it from that aspect. What would it be like to have a school where we have high accountability and high expectations, but that's also just fun to be at? I felt like the schools that I saw were either one or the other. It's
Right.
either really fun and maybe a little too like loosey goosey, or run like a military ship that, with really high performance, but maybe people weren't as thrilled about going every day. So I kind of wanted to strike that balance. And around the same time, my principal at the time reached out and just asked me if I had been thinking of leadership. He told me he saw that potential in me. And so kind of those two merged around the same time in my career. And so I decided to go get my master's and go from there. It's been a wild journey, but I have loved it.
I love when you kind of feel that longing within, but then at the same time, there's somebody in your path who kind of inspires you or encourages you to try that new thing. So I love that you also had that person in your journey. So, when we talk about the principalship and living life period, technology is a big part of everything that we do. And so when you think of your personal or professional life, what is a tech tool that comes to mind that you're like, I can't live without this one, or people need to know about this one?
I'm so glad that you said work and just life in general, because this tool that I'm going to talk about is one that has really helped me merge the two together, just as far as how I organize them. For years, I did the whole thing where I had like a personal calendar and then a work calendar and a personal to do and a work to do, which I still do in a sense. But having that, well, let me say the app first. It's Google Keep. So it's not anything brand new or revolutionary, but I kind of ignored it. Like when it first came out, people talked about it. I was like, okay, another Google gadget. Like I have already the Drive and Docs and all these other things, the calendar. But Google Keep is a great way to manage not only like your to-do lists, but also just your running notes. And that's what I would struggle with the most. Like, which Post-it did I write that on? Or like, which notepad was I holding when I jotted down that really important piece of information? So now, instead of having all the Post-its and all the notepads all over the place, I just open Google Keep and I have different running notes. Like one is for behavior, one is for just general campus operations, one is what I need to get from the store on the way home, so, and I have them organized so depending on the filter I'm looking at, it's either going to show all my personal, all my work, or all of them. together. And that's been a good system for me to keep all the notes, all the things in one place. It's kind of strange at first because you're used to like being on the phone. Oh, let me grab a pen. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to retrain myself like, no, I don't need a pen. I don't need paper. I need to open a device and go to Google Keep and put the notes there. And it's really been a game changer for me.
So I love that Google Keep is free, but my question, I guess, that I have, and that people who are listening or watching may have, is it an app? Is it a website? Can you use it from anything?
Yeah, so it is. It is an app. So like if you go into your Google Drive and then there's like the little waffle in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
You click the buttons and it shows all the Google things, your docs, your forms. If you scroll down a little bit, down a few rows, you'll just see an icon for Keep. And
Okay.
so as soon as you click that, it launches a Google Keep that's linked to your Google account. And then after you start building your lists out, you can download the app on your phone and see your list from there, just like you would access other stuff from the Google Drive. It's pretty simple.
I love it. Okay, so now that we've got the technology tool that we can use personal or professional, which is always great when it's a 2-for-1 special, obviously we know the importance of building up school culture, and we know that it's a job that's never done, and the more ideas we can have in our tool chest, the better. So when you think about building up the culture at your campus or any other campus that you've worked at, what is something that you've done or been a part of that you really enjoyed?
I would say for sure, and I'm gonna do this through the lens of being a first year principal at this current campus,
Mm-hmm.
because whether or not it's your first year at a school, there are very intentional steps that you have to do. You know, when you first started, to make sure that you set the tone right
Mm-hmm.
and that you started building relationships the right way. This doesn't have to be done your first year; it can be done at any time, and I would highly recommend it. But when I started this year at Sigler, one of the things I felt was very important to do was take a good week of my time in one of those first few weeks and schedule those one-on-one meetings with staff members,
Mm-hmm.
um, all throughout that week. And it kind of ends up being several marathon days of that. And I,
Right.
scheduled I did a Calendly sign up. And so there were just 15-minute slots through all the days that entire week, and they filled up pretty quickly. And people would say, "Gosh, that sounds exhausting." Um, but if you don't intentionally create that space and that time, you're never going to have time to meet with all your staff members individually. And just doing that and using the same common 4 or 5 questions with each person that came in, it allowed me to start the school year, later in August,
Mm-hmm.
really having a semi-foundational relationship with everybody. I
Yeah.
was able to talk to the questions that I asked were, first tell me about yourself, kind of like you did. With what's your journey? What brought you to where you are here at Sigler? But then what have you done in the past, or what have you seen at Sigler that has been your favorite and you would love to see continue? And then what areas of Sigler or your campus do you feel like have the most area of opportunity for change? And then lastly, is there anything else you'd like me to know about you or about the school? Oh, and then there was a bonus one. Is there anyone that you want to shout out or give special recognition to that you feel
Ah,
like is a great member of the team? Those 5 questions, I learned so much about everybody, and we were able to start the year without that transition period of like, you know, names and faces, and like that was not as big of a deal because we had built that time together and I got to sit with them one-on-one for 15 minutes.
yeah.
And so I would highly recommend, if you haven't, like aside from the mini culture activities we do and fun outings and things, starting from the beginning of letting your staff know that you value meeting with them one on one, and following up if they share something in the what they don't like or what they want to see change, like highlighting that, and make
Right.
sure you circle back with them throughout the year to ask them if they feel like that is improving. I think that's
Right.
really powerful.
So you said so much goodness there that there's a couple of things I want to kind of repeat for our listeners. And the first is, yes, it may be exhausting at the beginning, but it's going to solve issues down the road. So that way, it's kind of like when you get discipline right in your classroom from the start, it solves things down the road instead of always putting out fires. But I think you brought up a great point that you did it as an idea of, this is my first year on the campus. I want to get to know people. But the great thing about that idea is anybody, no matter how many years you've been at a campus, can sit down and ask those questions, because I think those questions you asked are great. And I loved that not all 5 were 100% about the person. I love that you threw one in there about like who would you shout out on campus or something like that, because that's such a neat way for them to also stop and think about how can I recognize that there are all other awesome people here as well. So I love it. And so is the follow-up hard? That's my question, because I feel like having that follow-up of keeping track of the things they want to look at or the things they love, do you find that difficult, or was it like, no, actually, once they share it, it was pretty easy to come back with them?
I would say for the most part, it's been fairly simple, only because, if it's something that they've shared with you that they would really like to see change, especially if it's a trend amongst many
Mhm.
people, but even if it's not, if it's something that only one person shared, just by making note of that and referring back to it, it kinda sticks in your mind. So then if I'm having a conversation with that person, say that someone put they would love to see a more structured, discipline management
Mhm.
system. So then throughout the year, as you're talking about discipline incidents or getting their feedback, I think I ha it behooves me to mention, "Hey, so you actually mentioned this at the beginning of the year as something that you wanna see
Mhm.
change. So from then to where we are now, it's March. Would you say that you feel things have improved from where they were at when we had that conversation, or have they not?" Just as kind of like a pulse check, but it also shows your teachers that you're still thinking about those things that we talked about back in August because you do value them as important. Now some are more difficult, if
Yeah.
it's a very,
Yeah.
like, specific thing that's doesn't get a lot of attention, so kinda have to make effort to go back and look
Mhm.
and circle back and do a check-in, but even just an informal check-in. You had mentioned this kinda bothered you before. How are you feeling about it?
Right.
Here's what we've done to address it. Would you say it's gotten better?
I love it. It just
But
lets people
you're
know
right.
they're heard.
Sometimes they'll say, "No, it hasn't." Like, I've got that before. I feel like it hasn't. It's like, "Well, thank you." That lets me know that what we've done has not addressed it, so that's feedback we keep growing from, but I'm not
Yep.
ignoring it, and I'm not I want you to know I still value your thoughts on it, so
Mhm.
tell me how it is.
Exactly. I love it. Well, Tyson, when I think about wrapping this conversation up, I think about, if there's one piece of advice that you would have for a first year, or heck, we're all in our first year every year, administrator, what would your piece of advice be, or words of wisdom?
Sure, so I would say, as a new administrator or maybe somebody that's been in the role for a while, don't underestimate the value of just observing a
Mhm.
system, and only listening. Especially I relate this back to it's not my first year as a principal, but it is in this district in this school. And so that's been a challenge sometimes, when you have great ideas or you have things that you wanna try and see how people feel about it. But the first year, I really underestimated the power of just really being a great observer and listener so that I can really get a feel for what are the true priorities here, like that we really want to start tackling in year two. Um, so, I mean, part of that I can relate back to the one-on-one, meetings. But additionally, when you're meeting with grade levels, when you're observing classrooms and PLCs, just really trying to soak it in more than change it right in that moment,
Yeah.
so you can truly have a good picture. That way, when you are ready to propose changes or try something new, you're really coming from a more informed place than just a initial observation or an initial, impression. You can feel more confident in the decisions you're making later on.
I love that. Sometimes it is okay to just sit back and listen. That is such great advice. Well, for those of you who are watching this, you can see that Tyson is wearing some pretty awesome Wheelie, Texas gear.
My new
Gotta
one, I
give a
just got
shout
it this
out.
week.
Do what?
It's my new one, I just got it this week. I'm starting to
Hey,
get the full rainbow. I think I've got several colors.
I was gonna say most of us have several colors, but if you are looking to get your own Wheelie Texas gear, you can check out our TEPSA social media channels. We've posted about it every week, so you can get a link to order some of yours today. Tyson, I'm so thankful that you spent some time with us today. If people want to connect
Yeah.
with you online, are you on social media anywhere?
I am. You can catch me on Twitter, at Principal Tyson.
There we go. So connect with Tyson on social media, and also connect with Tyson at our TEPSA Summer Conference in
Woohoo! Oh, so
June
excited.
7th through 9th at the Kalahari. You won't want to miss it. I mean, last year, Tyson and I had a pretty amazing session about leadership lessons we learned from Kelly Clarkson, and we might be bringing something special new this year for you all, so you won't want to miss it. Register today. There's some fantastic master classes, but you'll want to secure your spot as soon as possible. Thank y'all so much for listening or joining another episode of our Member Spotlight series, and check out next week with an all-new guest.